It's the holiday season, and we are coming up on the shortest day of the year and the beginning of the astronomical winter. How does our winter look with respect to temperatures and rainfall? Let's see where we are. Shelby will address that. Our weather as we close out the year, Adam will address that, and I will take us through the first half of 2025 in the December edition of the Water Resources Outlook.
In the last 30 days, we've seen a few frontal systems move through the area, providing rainfall for the southeast. Most of the heavy rain remained above the fall line, and some of it was beneficial to drought conditions, as we will see later. The heavy swath of rain that fell in Alabama and Georgia on December 10th and 11th was the only noteworthy event in the last 30 days. 2-day accumulations in the area north of Columbus, Georgia, and south of Atlanta, Georgia, ranged from 3 to 4.5 inches. Close to the coast of Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, rain accumulations were between 1/2 inch and 1.5 inches, which is about 3 inches less than normal for the period. Transitioning to look at the rainfall departure since January 1st, a significant portion of the southeast is rounding out the year with above normal rainfall thanks to an active tropical season. The state of Alabama has the greatest portion of area that received below average rainfall, and the coasts of North Carolina and the northern coast of South Carolina are also on target to receive below normal rainfall for the year. Since this will be our final WRO for 2024, we wanted to make note of the rainfall and drought conditions in Puerto Rico. Although the island only saw rain from a few tropical storm systems, rain has been above average for the year to date. Portions of the mountainous downslopes and coastal regions did not accumulate as much rainfall as the interior, and a few months back we even saw some D0 drought in these areas. As of current, there are no areas of the island that are experiencing drought conditions. Focusing back on the southeast CONUS, this graphic shows 28-day runoff for the past 2 years for the South Atlantic and Gulf states. Though back in the early summer months of 2024, we saw very little rainfall, hurricanes moving through the area quickly rebounded the runoff to its highest percentiles. Fortunately, as we moved into the fall months, we were in a much better condition than we were last year, so a dry pattern that moved into the area did not decrease runoff to its below normal areas, and we've been able to remain normal. Looking at stream flow now and viewing each state individually, we can see that the 28-day stream flows are mostly normal across the southeast. Coastal areas, as well as Alabama and eastern Mississippi, where rainfall was below average in the past 30 days, are currently marking below normal stream flow. Though the streams and runoff reflect normal conditions, drought conditions are present in every southeast state. Interior portions where frontal showers were substantial are marking no drought or just abnormal dryness, but moderate drought is beginning to encroach in areas. In Alabama, where drought conditions have persisted through the year, severe drought continues to impact some areas. This drought monitor change map is displaying if and how drought class has changed since our last WRO. Recently, rivers in Florida have recessed from the many tropical events the state saw, and dryness expanded across the state in the last month. In Alabama and Georgia, where I previously mentioned the most accumulated rainfall was, there was a 1 of 2 classes of drought improvement. For areas near Atlanta, this means that dryness was overcome and drought status was removed. Drought conditions did not change over the last month for a large portion of the southeast U.S., which you can see in the gray tones. We are headed into the wet season for most of the southeast, which runs from January through April. We continue to see El Niño Southern Oscillation neutral conditions, which imply normal chances and conditions for rainfall. With at least a weak La Niña still expected to emerge through March, We could see below average rainfall in the coming month, and Todd will talk more about that later. August through October are typical months for Florida's high stream flow because of tropical systems and frontal systems, and that remained true for 2024. I will now pass it to Adam to discuss the upcoming weather.
The abnormal warmth we have had recently will come to an end today as the region sits situated in a cooler post-frontal air mass. This air mass is also drier, with most of the southeast not expecting to see any rain for the rest of the day. Tomorrow, a weak low-pressure system starts to form off the mid-Atlantic coast, allowing for the chance for showers in that region, mainly in the eastern half of North Carolina. Otherwise, the remainder of the southeast will remain dry. There is the possibility Saturday that in the Appalachians, some wraparound moisture behind the now stronger low-pressure system moving past New England could bring some wintry precipitation. However, any snow that does materialize is expected to stay confined to only the most mountainous areas. The rest of the southeast is not expecting any precipitation, with high pressure nudging eastward. To round out the weekend, high pressure is firmly in control over the region, allowing for the continuation of a dry forecast. Monday sees more dry weather for the southeast as high pressure continues to dominate, the only exception being the eastern Florida coastline, where some showers are possible near a small weakness in the high. This same general pattern continues into Tuesday, with most of the region remaining dry, aside from the chance for showers along the east coast of Florida. To our west, though, we can see the beginnings of a messy frontal system, which will eventually help bring some more expansive rain chances to the area. Moisture begins to be pushed back into the southeast ahead of that messy system on Wednesday, leading to a cloudier Christmas Day with a chance for rain showers. The generally drier trend for the next week is reflected in this precipitation forecast map for the next 7 days. The southeast is largely not expected to see above a quarter of an inch on average for the next week. However, some pockets of locally higher amounts are possible if an area sees heavier or repeated showers. Looking ahead to the long term, no big surprises are expected as the Climate Prediction Center has the southeast outlook either normal or with small, about 33 to 40% chances for above normal precipitation.
Thank you, Adam. Well, as mentioned in my introduction, we are approaching the first day of astronomical winter, and our days start getting longer again. However, we have got a whole winter to get through, and it should be an interesting one. Our January forecast may not feel much like winter. For winter in the southeast, aside from central and south Florida, it becomes our recharge season to wet the soils, fill the reservoirs, and raise the water tables. With that often comes flooding. However, as we look into January, our forecast is leaning toward decent chances of below normal precipitation for much of the area. For Central and South Florida, this is their dry season, and while they are looking for a break from all the rain that they received through the tropical season, it looks like their dry season will start off even drier than normal. The reason why? La Nina is the culprit, and here is the forecast for the coming months. Interestingly enough, we've been talking about this potential La Nina since last spring as we came out of a pretty strong El Nino. However, as shown by the graphic in the lower right-hand corner, our chances for La Nina and neutral conditions are equal. And while I think we will end up declaring this winter a La Nina event, it will likely be a weak one. And so, our forecast for the winter looks warm and dry. First, let's talk about the warm part, as we see that the Climate Prediction Center is forecasting above normal temperatures for the southeast for the January through March seasonal period. This doesn't eliminate the chance of having cold air filter down from the north and having a cold snap, but it makes it less likely that we will have a long-term cold snap. And with the warmer, it looks like most of the southeast will be drier also. Remember that this is the time of year, as mentioned before, to recharge our soils, refill our reservoirs, and raise the water tables. So dry and warm would mean it's less likely that those things would happen. Coming up on Florida's dry season, and they would probably appreciate some quiet time for some recovery after their busy tropical season. With all that being said, let's talk about two things. One, it looks like it will be a weak La Nina, and sometimes we end up not quite as dry as we are forecasting. We could very well end up very near normal for our rainfall. 2, the gradient between the dry in the southeast and the wet up in the Ohio and Tennessee Valley makes that wet area get very close to our area. A slight shift and we could see improvements in the drought, but also the potential for flooding. The drought outlook hints at that normal to maybe above normal rainfall, maybe creeping down enough that we could see improvements in Mississippi, Alabama, and far northwest Georgia, with much of the rest of the southeast having drought development. And while this may not show up or be especially impactful during the winter, not receiving it could have implications as we go into spring without recharging the area. Our spring forecast at least looks somewhat more optimistic for most of the southeast, with equal chances of above, below, and near normal rainfall, and North Carolina and Virginia having slightly better chances of having above normal rainfall as we start to come out of the La Nina. It will make for a very interesting winter into spring. And so the bottom line, in the short term, we have a pretty dry end to 2024, maybe getting slightly more active as we get into the new year. As for the long term, La Nina is the main driver of our forecast, and right now that looks warm and dry for our winter, but there's still a chance we could see near normal rainfall if La Nina is not quite as strong or we stay in neutral. We will be watching that very closely and hoping that you have a great holiday season, and we'll look forward to talking to you again in 2025 when we do our next Water Resources Outlook on January 23rd. Looking forward to it. You all take care.